Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Financial Sense, a monthly public program sponsored by Penny Forward. I'm Chris Peterson. I am an accredited financial counselor and the founder and CEO of Penny Forward. We're a nonprofit organization founded and led by blind people. We help each other navigate the complicated landscape of personal finance by offering self-paced online financial education courses, weekly and monthly group workshops such as this one, and one-on-one financial counseling provided by accredited financial counselors and accredited financial counselor candidates who themselves have lived experience with blindness. Now I'm going to turn it over to our facilitator for this month's call, Mo Carpenter. She is an AFC candidate. She just recently passed her accredited financial counselor exam and is now working on finishing up her remaining experience hours before she can be certified as an AFC. So I'm excited to give the floor over to her. And before I do that, I want to encourage all of you to stay on till the very end of the call to hear a coupon code that will get you a discount on a Penny Forward membership. Now over to Mo.
Thanks, Chris. And I do apologize if you hear some noise in my background. I have a puppy that has decided to just kind of make some noise. So I am Mo Carpenter. I am a financial coach and counseling candidate, I guess, as you would say. And today we're going to be talking frugal fall fun because, as we know, it is my favorite season of the year. Maybe you didn't know that, but it is the fall season and there is a lot going on, but there are a lot of ways to get a little carried away with fall activities. And so we just wanted to kind of bring attention to the fact that there are ways to do things on a budget. I know a budget is kind of a bad word to some people, but, just be conscious of how you're spending your money, because the more we spend on entertainment and those kinds of things, the less we have to do, or the less money we have for the other things that bring us joy and keep us around and happy and all that good stuff. So as usual, we like to start most of our calls with an icebreaker, and tonight is no exception. And I would like you to let us know who you are, where you're from, and then one of your favorite activities or items about fall. So I am Mo Carpenter, and I am from the Des Moines, Iowa metro. And one of my absolute favorite things about fall is my birthday is in fall. So that is why it is one of my favorite seasons. And so one of my favorite things this past week, because this week was my birthday week, is to go out and get some birthday freebies, which was some dessert items for myself, and to rack up those coupons so that I can go get some other items throughout the week. Or throughout the rest of this month to get some other fun things going on. And feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to answer, or just unmute and be, polite and let others have the floor if they get to the unmute button first. Do we have anybody who wants to enter?
William, go ahead.
There we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is William Belina from Burien, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle, for those people that don't know. So one of my favorite activities is to, besides participating on Zoom calls, part of ACB community, I also like to go and interact with people and socialize with dogs at this dog daycare here in Seattle. It's called Growler's Dog Daycare. And I might be doing that this weekend. You never know. Anyway. That is one of my favorite activities besides participating on ACB community calls. Thank you for letting me share.
Janine, go ahead, please.
Hi there. I am Janine Lee, and I am from Florida. So we don't really get fall that much. We get a couple days, but I like to travel in the fall, and I like to go apple picking and do harvesty things. I love the fall because it has sunflowers and pumpkins. And yeah, I like to celebrate my friends' birthdays. And also, I like my free birthday freebies, but that comes more in the winter. But I love fall.
Technically, your birthday's still in fall.
That's true. So birthday freebies and celebrating my friends' birthdays and just all the fun fall events because I love pumpkins and candy and all the fun things.
Thanks,
And
Janine.
And the autumn thing, like the fall things, like acorns fall from the trees during this time. So it's a good time to stock up for crafting.
Thanks, Janine. And thanks, William. I muted myself instead of unmuting myself to say thank you to you.
And Pippi, go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. I am Pippi, and I'm in Colorado. And my favorite thing to do during the fall is my favorite thing to do most of the time, and that's to bake. But now I get to bake my favorite things like apple bread and pumpkin bread and all the fall fun things to do like that.
Thanks, Pippi. Anyone else like to share? Chris, I'm going to pick on you. Chris Peterson. Oh, maybe he stepped away.
I'm sorry, I did step away for a moment. What were you asking me?
Your name, where you're from, and favorite fall event.
Thank you. So I'm Chris Peterson. I am from Minnesota. My favorite fall activity is carving pumpkins. I have always loved, since I was a kid, carving pumpkins and putting out jack-o'-lanterns. And so about this time of year, every year, I get really excited because I get to take my kids and go and pick out the perfect pumpkins, or sometimes the imperfect pumpkins, and carve them up.
And now we
Thanks,
have
Chris.
Kelly. Oh, sorry. Now we have Kelly.
You're good.
Kelly followed by Petra. So Kelly, go ahead, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Peterson. I'm from Minnesota. And my favorite part of fall is the fall colors. And Chris and I got married in October, and we had fall colors and pumpkins in our wedding. And that's just my favorite thing about fall.
Oh, I did not know that. I guess know when your guys' anniversary was. So, yep. Definitely one of my favorite decoration seasons. Petra?
Well, I used to be in Colorado. I'm in Oklahoma now. My favorite thing about fall is just fall. I like the cooler nights. I used to be in Colorado, and it was nicer in Colorado. I wish I could be there now, but that's not the way the cards fell. But I just like the cooler nights, the nicer days, and where a lot of people say springtime is their favorite. Springtime is a lot muddier. Fall is cold and crisp, and there's not a lot of mud on the ground from melting snow yet. So that's what I like about fall.
Thanks, Petra.
And now we have Paige.
Yes, my favorite thing about fall is the changing colors of the leaves, cooler nights, and enjoying being with family and friends, and mostly trick-or-treating Thanksgiving, and most important, the pumpkins might be favorite.
Thanks, Paige. Did we have any other hands or anybody in Clubhouse? I'm going to assume we don't have someone in Clubhouse since Belle hasn't raised her hand, but just want to make sure I give everyone opportunity. But this whole month in the Penny Forward, oh, I am sorry, I did not silence my phone. This whole month in the Penny Forward, our Wednesday workshops, which are a members only perk, we're talking about savings for the entire month. So the Frugal Fund is just a way to build up those savings so that we can do more of those fun things that we want to do. As you all know, by the end of the fall season, we get to the holiday season, which can be kind of expensive, especially for a lot of us. If we have any travel plans or just getting out to do that socializing and stuff. So it's kind of helpful when we jump into the fall, if we can kind of find a few ways to cut back some of those expensive entertainment items so that we can kind of save up for those other things that we do want to do when we get to that other special time of the year. Because let's face it, fall is also a very special time of the year. So one very popular item, especially right now as we are in October, is of course going to the pumpkin patch. And sometimes you can find some pumpkin patches that do allow you to take home pumpkins. I think this was more common as a kid's activity beyond the adult activities. But a lot of times there are pumpkins for purchase. So if you find a pumpkin you like, you can purchase them, but it's not required. You can just go and walk the fields. And a lot of times, a lot of these places with a especially large pumpkin patch will have things like hay rack rides and other activities to do. Again, a lot of these are a little more kid-centered. They don't have to be. I've done them without children, and I enjoy doing them with my children. But going to the pumpkin patch is definitely something that we like to do. We used to actually grow pumpkins. We didn't do it this year, and last year they kind of died off early. But we've had pumpkins in our front yard, so it was our own mini pumpkin patch. But that was always a really big fun thing for my family to do, and to have just our, what are we going to get this year? Because pumpkins are one of those things that if you use last year's seeds, it pollinates with the other things around it. And so you never know what exact pumpkin you're going to get, because that depends on what other pumpkins were around when the particular blossom for that pumpkin was pollinated. And so you can get a variety of pumpkins if you use your last year's seeds. So if you want a particular pumpkin, you do need to use seeds from like a seed packet from the store. So, of course, as you can go along with your pumpkin patch is, as Chris said, the carving pumpkins. This is also an activity that I find a lot of fun. We usually do this about another week or so down at my in-laws, and we have a big party. Something to go along with pumpkin carving is then pumpkin seed roasting, which is another favorite of my family's. And, you know, that gets you that whole activity. You can go to the pumpkin patch, get your pumpkin and carve it, and then have a tasty treat. The one thing with buying a pumpkin that you carve is usually your jack-o'-lantern pumpkins are not the pumpkins that you would make like a pie or something out of. Those are going to be your smaller cooking pumpkins versus the carving pumpkins, but the seeds are good no matter which style that you get. Then another idea that I believe Janine brought up was doing fall art things. So does anyone have any fun favorite kind of holiday or maybe ideas for crafts for the fall season? And you can raise your hands or feel free to blurt out, since it would be like a 1 or 2 word answer. No ideas, guys? Well, we already did one crafting, and that would be your pumpkin carving.
Sorry, I can't find my hand. Can I go?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, so this is Janine. Fall crafting is really, really fun. One good thing you can do is make gifts for people. Depending where you live, you can go walking. Florida is not so great for that, but still, you can find pine cones and you can find acorns and you can make wreaths, WREATHS, wreaths for the holidays. You can make little pins. You could take a pine cone and make little owls. Like you could paint it, you could put glitter on it, you could put felt, Yeah. So those are really fun.
I did not think of that one.
If you have kids, depending on the size of your pine cone, you can get a big one, a small one, and you can make magnets, or you can make big tall ones. You can also make Christmas trees out of pine cones if you paint them green and put glitter and beads. Pine cones are great for a lot of things. You could put a bunch together and glue them on a wreath, so you have a pine cone wreath and get some fun fall colors. The thing with the leaves, if you get some leaves, you need to Mod Podge them really well so they stay leafy if you don't get fake ones, if you want real ones. So yeah, so you can get free things from nature. And we all have cardboard around that comes from our packages. So even if you eat, you can save the box and cut that out to use it as a base. So very inexpensive craft you can make for Christmas or just to decorate your house. So I love acorns. I love pine cones. And I love leaves of all kinds, and like holly berries and stuff like that. If you can find them, holly berries don't always last, but they have these little tiny little seed things you can pick up too. And that way you have nature and craft. So there's one good folly craft. Plus it gets you out walking and spending time with people.
Thanks,
and
Janine.
recycling. Yeah, of course.
And Chris, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Janine used a word that I don't know, but it may be referring to what I was thinking of. When we were kids, I remember we used to get leaves off the ground when they had changed colors. So we'd get colorful leaves, and we would sandwich them between two pieces of wax paper and iron them so that they would be flat and between the paper and preserved. And I remember thinking that was pretty fun. So that was what I was going to propose. What was that word that you used, Janine, to keep leaves
I
leafy?
said Mod Podge.
What does that mean?
That is MODPODGE, and they have different kinds. There's 18 different kinds of Mod Podge, but there's so many. It basically is like a clear sealant, so you could put them between the wax paper. You could iron your leaves. Also, you could put crayon between wax paper with your leaves and color them as well, and do things with your crayons. But then if you want the leaf to last longer, it's like a glue sealant. So there's a bunch of different kinds of the Mod Podge, and then it makes the leaf last stronger and more durable. But I used to do that with my leaves too. But then when I would take them out of the wax paper, they would break sometimes. Mm-hmm. But you can iron them in there, and then sometimes they stay. But that's a fun activity. So Mod Podge is a common crafting sealer.
Okay. Well, I'm holding out for the food section of the discussion. So
yeah,
thank you for
right?
thank you for clarifying that though.
I got a couple things that I thought we'd discuss as a group. But thanks, guys. And I like the pine cone idea with just gathering those different seeds and nuts and things that you can find this time of year. The one fun thing about pine cones, in addition to just being a fun crafting item, is once you've let them dry out, they become an excellent fire starter. So if anyone out here is outdoorsy and likes to have, do fun activities, maybe in the fall or other times of the year, that's a nice thing to collect at this time of the year so that you can have it for doing your little fire pits and that kind of thing during the rest of the year. And then I hadn't actually heard of ironing the leaves before between wax paper, but I had done the crayon imprinting with them before. So another thing for crafting is we have this wonderful thing here in ACB called the ACB community. Have you all heard of it? But we do have ACB crafters, and they will be holding a few more calls this month. And I assume that those will be doing some kind of craft related items. I know before they have done things like the Braille drawings with holiday themes. I know they've also done pony bead items with in the crafting calls, and then your crochet knit items in those crafting calls. I'm not sure what else they've done, but I know they've done a lot of different fall things. So that's another great place to get some, nice, affordable, fun activities. Sometimes you do have to go buy some of that supplies for them, but they can be a lower priced item over some of your other options. So another thing to think about, and this kind of depends on what you're willing to have around for supplies and that kind of thing, is either soaps, lotions, or candles that you can make. And so there are some cheaper kits, and you can get different fall themed scents, because as we all know, pumpkin spice has been a very popular scent and flavoring for the last few years, but it is a a seasoning, so to speak. So there is that scent that you can add to a lot of things to make them fall. A lot of other things use a lot of apple scents and cinnamon scents for your fall fragrances. And so you can create some of those. I think the crafters have also made some of those in their calls. But they are not things that I've personally made, but I have gotten some supplies to do them, but I just did not get around to it. So maybe that's something I should plan to do with a group of people, because that would be a fun activity to do. And then you can make your own treat bags. If you do have children, this can be a fun activity if you get some just your grocery bags, like the paper sacks, or I have done it in making crocheted bags, or getting a canvas bag and then decorating that with different cutouts and things that the kids can glue onto the bags. And that just gives it a little bit of personalization. And then they can take that bag out when they go trick-or-treating. Or you as an adult could take it when you do your grocery shopping or other little errands, because a lot of times these bags aren't super large, but it does give you a little bit of that fall fun without going crazy on expenses. And another activity, although if you do start this activity, I would recommend that you keep it up all winter long, and that's creating bird feeders. And there's a lot of easy ways to do that with ears of corn or popcorn and stringing those. There's just a lot of different methods to it. But once you start feeding birds in your neighborhood, you do want to kind of keep doing it, especially if you are in an area like I am that's a little bit on the colder side. You do want to do that all winter long, because those birds then depend on that nourishment to get them through the winter. And then if you stop doing it, they may not fare so well finding food on their own. So just a little caveat with the making your own bird feeder or other animal wildlife feeders. Another fun fall activity is apple picking. Sometimes you can do this at the same place that you go to a pumpkin patch at, but there are lots of things you can do with apples, including making apple cider, which I have done up at the farm before. You get this old-fashioned press thing, and it's a lot of fun for the kids to go up and try to smash apples and get the juice. And the apple cider is actually better for you than apple juice, because it has all of the apple in it versus the apple juice, which is a lot of sugar with just the juice of the apples. And then, of course, we can make some things like apple desserts and other apple fritters and things. Another fun activity to do, and this kind of goes back to that pine cones being a fire starter, but having a nice big bonfire. A lot of times you may know that in the fall we have a lot of debris on the ground, whether it just be dead plants or leaves. The one thing to know if you are burning leaves is that some areas do have ordinances against burning leaves, and you do want to make sure that they're weighed down in some fashion so that they cannot blow away, because we don't want to start fires with nice light leaves that blow out of our fire pits and might cost us a little more in other places if something else were to catch on fire. But with your bonfires, you can also roast marshmallows. I have done this as a blind person, so it is definitely something we can do. You might end up with a lot more toasty marshmallows than light or golden brown marshmallows, but it is an activity that we can participate in, and I think is a lot of fun, especially if you're getting things like s'mores and doing that kind of way. We're almost to the food, I promise, Chris. And then another fun thing to do around a fire is to tell ghost stories, especially when you're at this time of the year. But this can be into the November and December time of the year. But just telling stories, having a nice music concert. Some people have instruments like acoustic guitars, ukuleles, harmonicas, just those nice little instruments. Well, not necessarily little if it's a guitar, but those portable instruments that make sound even without being amplified. So you can be out in the great outdoors and entertain yourself and entertain some others while you're at it. Another thing you can do is to get a group of people together and have a movie night. Now, we do this a lot at our house just all year round, but a nice way to make it into the fall theme is in especially October, doing things like horror movies. These don't have to be super scary movies. A lot of times at our house, we do some, I guess, more of the mystery type movie. So a Scooby-Doo movie or that kind of item. And then you get into fall. There are some kind of things, or get into November, and there are some Thanksgiving related movies that you can watch then. And then you get into Christmas and you can watch all your Christmas movies, but just kind of getting together and making a point to do something like a fun movie night where you get the popcorn out and have a lot of fun with that. And it's a lot cheaper than going to the theater for it. Oh, and another thing I wanted to mention with the movie night is there is the Spectrum Access app that does let you get the audio description for movies that they have. The problem is that a lot of the movies that we tend to watch aren't up there yet, but they do have a new feature now that if you look for a movie, you can request that they do get that movie in audio description available for it. But just another thing to add to our arsenal. And the nice thing about that is it syncs up with the sound of the movie that is playing in the space that you're in, so that you can have your own audio description. And the rest of your family, if they don't particularly care for audio description, they don't have to listen to it, and you can still be a part of the whole movie without having others be annoyed by audio description. I know that's kind of a personal preference thing. My husband in particular has ADHD and he gets very distracted by the audio description. So it's a lot handier for me to be able to have that just for my personal use. I don't think my children mind it as much as he does, but that's just the way my particular family works. And now we have made it to the food portion of our segment. And so there are lots and lots of things that you can do around food and the fall time. There are lots of foods that are available, more plentiful at this time of year. You can find them at a lot of farmers markets. Since I am in the northern part of the United States, we tend to kind of drop off our farmers markets after the month of October. But I think if you go further south, then you'll have farmers markets pretty regularly throughout the entire year, and maybe more so when you get into these slightly cooler months when harvesting is a little easier to do because you're not out in quite the same heat as you are during the summer. But there are lots and lots of things that we harvest when we get into the fall. A lot of this can be things like corns and onions and potatoes And so there are just lots of options. And so when you're thinking food, we always think of, or we can think of the Thanksgiving style meals. So this would be either getting a group of your friends, getting a group of family. A lot of us all experience Thanksgiving at the end of November, but it doesn't just have to be the end of November on that Thursday. You can do Thanksgiving activities outside of that specific day and do it with your friends. Have a Friendsgiving, I believe it is called, and really just play up some of those other food items that you can do. There are lots of baked goods you can make. Anybody have a favorite baked good that they either make themselves or look for this time of year?
Chris, go ahead, please.
Pretty much any kind of pie.
Surprise, surprise, Chris was first on this topic.
Oh, I love the food topic. Everybody knows it. I could talk forever. Apple pie and pumpkin pie are things that I look forward to this time of year. And, it's maybe not a baked good per se. Carameled apples are something I also really enjoy on the food side.
Thanks, Chris.
Janine, go ahead, please.
Really? I beat Pippi? Pippi should go before me. Okay.
I don't think I see Pippi's hand up yet.
I don't either.
Okay. Okay. So for me, I disagree that it's not a lot cooler in the fall here in Florida. I would love that. So I like to travel where it's cold.
You were cooler yesterday.
I was. It was awesome. And then we had this hurricane, and that was amazing and made it cooler. So thank you, Milton. So in the fall, I like to do pumpkin-y things. So you and I were talking about a pumpkin soup earlier, and I think I'm going to try that probably in this thing called Community that you mentioned. So my favorite things to bake in the fall are cookies. I really like to make my cookie dough and make the balls and freeze them and put them in the freezer. And also bread. I really like to make garlic dill bread, and I like to make Italian bread and just lots of breads. So fall is fun for baking because the house is not as hot usually. And also if you go apple picking, then you can use the apples that you pick to make things. So yeah, I love fall. It's great. And the baking things.
Thanks, Janine. Pippi?
Now Pippi. And
Since
then
you've called her
followed
out.
by Chris. Exactly.
Am I only allowed to talk about things that I like to bake or cook in
You
general?
can talk about other things. We'll talk about more food as we go.
Oh, okay. I'll just talk about baked goods then. So pumpkin bread and apple cinnamon bread, and this week I am trying out my hand at pear gingerbread and a peach bread. I am making carrot.
I don't think I've ever had a peach bread. I'm intrigued.
I'm making, that's not really fallish, but I'm making blueberry bread as well. And then I'm making my grandma's homemade bread recipe, which I absolutely love to do. And I like to turn it into bread bowls as well, and then make soup to go into it.
Now, you typically do breads and not muffins, or do you do a fair share of muffins too?
I do both. I just am putting together a couple of auction baskets, and so therefore I'm doing a bunch of mini loaves of bread this week.
Awesome.
Which is why I am doing all of those.
And not all bread and muffin mixes are interchangeable, but a lot of times you can make muffins or bread out of the mixes depending on what ingredients are in it. Nice way to spread it out for longer use.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one more thing. You kind of bake it. So those apples and such that you pick, and it's also pear picking season, making homemade apple butter and pear butter out of them is delicious. And then you can also control the amount of sugar and spices and things that you put in it as well.
Thanks, Pippi. And Chris, ready for more punishment?
I don't think I meant to raise my hand.
Oh, we thought you had more ideas for us.
Well, let's see here. Of course, when we're on the bread topic, I think about dinner rolls or biscuits or that kind of thing for Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, so there's one more, but no, I think I had my hand raised by accident. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. So another fun category when we get to the foods, especially since we're in the fall and all the produce is coming in, is soups and stews. Does anyone have a soup or stew that they like? I know Janine said that she was going to try that pumpkin soup, but it was a very Swedish kind of thing. But there are other things. I know my family in particular really likes potato-based items. So that is something that we look at this time of year and maybe adding some squash or other things to it.
Pippi,
I see Pippi.
please. Yeah.
I love to cook. Corn chowder, and I add green chilies to it. It's kind of another seasoning. It's kind of my touch.
Yeah, the corn soups are good too.
Also, a squash and sausage soup, and you can do. Sorry, my computer's talking in my other ear. You can do pumpkin. You could do the acorn squash. You can do pretty much any of them. Making beer cheese soup in those bread bowls is delicious. My daughter's favorite is broccoli and cheddar soup. I love to make soup in the fall as well. I live in Colorado, so port green chili, making that from scratch is also something I really enjoy doing. I could go on and on, but I'll shut up so other people can talk too. So
I was just going to say, chili is a very popular soup at my house, and especially this time of year, you can do it with, I keep saying especially, and I'm really sorry about that, guys. I'm realizing that as I'm talking. But we do usually a lot of tomatoes in our garden. And so we get those fresh tomatoes that you can add to your chilies to make it even just a little more special. Although we didn't really get around to messing with our tomatoes much this year, and we've already had a hard freeze. I shouldn't say already because it's actually a late hard freeze, but we did have our nice cold night the other night.
We have Chris and Janine with their hands up. So you tell me what order you
Did you mean to raise your hand this time,
exactly.
Chris?
I did. I was going to mention chili. Chili is a favorite of mine, as well as wild rice soup, which may be a Minnesota thing more than, I don't know if it is not a Minnesota thing, but chicken wild rice soup or just wild rice soup with a nice kind of cream base to it is really yummy. And if you've never tried it before, I highly recommend it.
I've had chicken soup with rice, but I don't know if I've had wild rice chicken soup. And then Janine?
So especially in the fall, I really like to do fondue with Sexy, who is my mom. We like to do fondue so we can do it with wine or beer. But basically, you double boil it, or if you have a fondue pot, first you cook it and then you put it in the fondue thing, because it's a really fun way to be together. But then soups, yes, chili. I do an Italian vegetarian chili because I don't like chili flavors, but I use all the beans and all the stuff and tofu and tomatoes and just all the fresh things. And it's also really good in fall. I don't really like it any other time of the year, but it's homemade macaroni and cheese in the crock pot. So I have a really great recipe, and it takes like 4 or 5 hours to make with all the stuff gelling together and stuff. So yeah, crock pots are amazing all year. I love to bake. I love to bake and cook and everything. So I like it when it's cooler though. So yeah. I'm jealous of the Colorado pear season that you can pick, and the weather there and the weather in Iowa. Y'all need to give me all your weather so it's nice and chilly for baking.
Thanks, Janine. Another thing with any of your soups or stews or or when you're making chili, it's that you can invite others over and invite them to bring their own dish, and then you can have a chili cook-off. Now, my particular ACB chapter does this about November-ish time of year. My church does it in about January, February time of year. So it just kind of depends on your area on when they want to do things. But it's a great, fun way to get people together and do something where everybody can enjoy stuff and you don't have to spend a lot of money since everyone's participating and chipping in. And if you're not really a soup or chili maker kind of person, you can make the cornbread or biscuits and things to go with it. So there is options for everyone to be able to participate. And I know when I was looking at recipes, and honestly, I just went quickly and threw this into AI and just asked it for some easy fall recipes. And let me tell you, it came up with some really good, easy, cheap recipes. Even things just like caramelized carrots with a maple sugar sauce, your caramel apples like Chris was talking about, butternut squash items and acorn squash. Acorn squash is one of my favorite squashes, by the way. So anything that says any of those kinds of things is what I like. And like Pippi was saying, your breads are a great way to use up those fall produce and get your bang out for all the bang for your buck. And then there's things like apple crisps and apple muffins, and just there's all sorts of ideas out there. So if there's anything you're looking for when we're talking creating food, there's definitely a plethora of places to get information, as it is kind of a favorite time, especially for cooking and making those large meal kind of things, since we are thinking Thanksgiving and getting together with lots of people. So there's a lot of comfort food and that kind of recipes that are out there. So we'll move on, but I do want to encourage you to check out the post for this recording. I did send a link to Chris to post with the recording of a no-bake pumpkin cheesecake. So that would be a nice, easy fall activity, a nice, easy fall recipe that you can make. It looked like it just used some pumpkin puree and some cream cheese, and I forget what else went in it, but it was whip these things together and put it in a pre-made pie crust, or you could make your own. It did give that suggestion in the recipe. So there's some ways to get some good ideas for recipes on that site if you want to check it out once this recording gets posted. Another thing you can do in the fall, especially for those, I said especially again, I'm sorry. Another fun thing to do for those in the southern climate that's a little harder to do in the hotter months of the year is, since we are getting to a little bit cooler time, is outdoor activities. So I know someone I talked to today said they enjoy going swimming this time of year. It's not too cold yet to get in that water. And so it's a nice way to stay fit and still get in your exercise, as long as you have a membership to a pool or a pool of your own that you can get into. There's also hiking that a lot of people do this time of year. If you have enough site, you could also do the hiking. So you could go browse the change of the leaf colors if you're in a slightly cooler climate, but it's not necessarily have to watch the changing of the leaves for everyone. You can also just go out and collect different leaves so that you can try and identify what kind of tree leaf it is, because many of you may have realized, and if you haven't been outdoors a lot, maybe you don't realize it as much, but every tree has a unique pattern to their leaves. And so every leaf is different for the different kinds of plants. So some, like a maple leaf, have a much pointier with lots of points and broader points that it reaches. And then you have oak leaves, which are much rounder leaves. And so it's just kind of fun to see the different kind of leaves that are out there and see which kinds of things you can come up with in a collection of your own identified leaves, and maybe do some of that leaf pressing so that you can preserve those leaves and make yourself a little braille tag or some other kind of identification so you know what kind of leaves that you came across during your fall adventures. Another thing to do in the slightly warmer climates is it's a great time for cycling. This is an activity that me and my husband like to do a lot this time of year, especially if I can still wear my shorts outside, not necessarily as fun to do with pants because I have had the issue where I've gotten my pants stuck in the spokes. But going out and cycling and just being out in the cooler air and going up and down and crunching through the leaves that do grow on the bike paths, that's a lot of fun. So don't forget those outside activities. And it may even be a time when you could go join some kind of 5K run. There's lots of fun runs. There's also lots of runs for different charities. So one thing to just kind of keep yourself open to, and options are out there for a lot of physical activities this time of year. So another thing to look for, and this is going to take a little more research on your part, and it's looking for those festivals and other kind of Halloween or craft fairs. A lot of those the craft fairs are going to start up more as we get closer to the holiday gifting season, but they do start up now just for your holiday decor and those kinds of things. But there's also other festivals and things like trunk or treats. We actually just went to a trunk or treat in my local area that turned out to be a really positive experience for us. I tend to like the trunk or treats better than going house to house on Beggar's Night. Beggar's Night is our form of your typical trick or treat night. It's the night before Halloween. But the trunk or treats I like because it keeps the kids all in kind of a line and they can't really wander off quite as much. But this particular trunk or treat had a lot of local businesses at it. And so my husband actually got a couple months supply of body soap that he likes to use, a lot of the handmade body soaps. And one of the places was a more handmade soap. It's called Buff City Soap. So it's not quite small business, but it is a smaller business. There's not a lot of them around. And he got a whole bunch of their samples and they were just handing them out like it was nothing. And he's like, this is going to last me a couple months. So he was super excited. And probably the kids were kind of like, what's wrong with this guy? He's so excited about soap. But it really saved us a lot of money just to attend this one trunk or treat event. And then there was other fun things for the kids and different activities and things. There wasn't a lot of candy at this particular event, which was also appreciated by myself because I don't appreciate picking up all the candy wrappers. So it was nice to have different items like the pencils and the other plastic toys and things for the kids to enjoy.
We've got about 12 minutes and Janine has her hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Janine.
I love Buff City Soap. Okay, I wanted to add also, you might want to check where you live because right now, October is Pride Month. And it's White Cane Month. So you can do in hot places. Okay, Daniel wanted me to point out that it's Pride Month in the places where it's warm. So like in all of Florida, you can attend Pride events, and those are usually free, and they hand out kitschy stuff as well, like rainbow flags and other items as well. So it's always fun to go do that in the fall too. I forgot to mention that happens here. And one thing you can do for your trunk or treats and stuff, you can always clean out the house and donate. Like if you have pencils or pens from conventions you've gone to, you could donate the pens to trunk or treat events. And yeah, that was all I want to say is Pride Month is fun to do.
Thanks, Janine. And
Yeah.
then you'll see in your northern states, you'll see a lot of the harvest festival kind of things where you'll have a lot of, kind of geared around the harvest. But a lot of those will have things like a bonfire, a hay rack ride, maybe a corn maze. That's another fun thing to do. The one caveat I give with corn mazes as a blind person is maybe take someone with a slightly more vision with you, because plants are plants and they might not grow close enough together all the time. And sometimes we find secret passages that aren't really there. So that is a personal experience that I give with going on corn mazes as a blind person, but they are lots of fun to do. Another thing is the haunted events, and this can be things like ghost tours. Sometimes these aren't necessarily cheap, but I think they're a really fun activity to do, especially if you are going and traveling somewhere and just need something that's maybe a little less expensive than going to something like a theme park and that kind of thing. And I don't personally go to the ghost tours for ghosts. I go for the historic tour that they are giving, and they call it a ghost tour. And that's a nice thing to get a lot of nice history on a location without actually and getting out and walking around the places and touching things in the places. And so that's why I really enjoy ghost tours, not so much for the ghost hunting, so to speak, but just for those historical tours that you get a lot of that smaller group attention. And you can do things like going to historical museums and that kind of thing. But I think it's more fun when you get to walk around the buildings and actually be in the places where these events happen. Another place to check out, especially for those free events, or a lot of times they are free, is your local library. And they tend to have harvest events and fall themed events. Also, in the state of Iowa, our Department for the Blind library has their own mail program that they do, that it's a monthly little kit that you get in the mail. I haven't personally done it, but I know it is out there. I just keep forgetting to sign up for it. And so that's another way to do something that maybe is a little more geared towards the blind and visually impaired. I'm not sure how many states have that kind of program, but I do know it's available in the state of Iowa. And they have it for adults, and then there's a separate program for children. And I think, and another fun thing to do in this time of year is to have a game night. And there are a lot of games that might have kind of a mystery or detective style nature to them. So that's kind of fun to do in October. And then there's other games and things that you can do in the other months that maybe aren't quite so Halloween related, but there are lots of options out there when you're looking at games, and there are lots of sites out there when you're looking for accessible games. Like Maxi Aids has some. I think the Independent Living has a few, and the Braille bookstore also has some Braille games. And there's also 64-ounce games if you are looking for brailing a game, and they make accessibility kits that then you add to a existing game, at least as far as I know. They might have some standalone completely accessible things now too. There's also the local sports that go on. Again, this is going to kind of come to me as someone who has kids, but this time right now is football season and band season. So that is what my activities are on the weekends currently, is going to the band festivals that are in my area so I can root on my senior. And then we also go to Friday night football so that we can also watch him march in his home games. But that is a way to kind of do some things. I think they're a little more expensive than they need to be, but that's just me personally. You can get a pass a lot of times to these school activities to do them for one price and get into all events. But we don't usually attend enough of them to make that worth it. So we just pay for the ones that we go to. Another thing you can do is costume making or trading. So this can be done in a thrift store or have people come over, swap ideas, make some things, just some ways to do there. You can also read outdoors. I thought this was a fun thing because we can even do that as a Braille or audio listener. Just go out, find a nice little patch of grass or next to a tree and do some reading in the great outdoors. You can also attend concerts. Sometimes those can be free, especially if they're in your city park. You can fly a kite. I've found this a lot of fun. I might not be able to quite tell what the kite is doing, but you can definitely feel that the kite is in the air or not in the air. So that is something I have also done this time of year. And it is time, if you like to garden, to get out your bulbs and plant those, because those are something that need that frost and that weathering over the winter to actually emerge the seedling from the seed. So that is something you can also do this time of year. Create a gratitude list. And of course, this is going to be good for all year round, but especially when we get into November, a lot of people like to count those things that they are thankful for. And we like to decorate our homes. This could be with those items we talked about in the crafting section, or just putting things out with the color or themes of the month that we're in. So right now it'd be your pumpkins and Halloween. Next month, more of your oranges and browns and harvesty things for Thanksgiving. And then as we get into December, kind of your holiday or winter decor.
And Chris, go ahead, please.
And I think I'm through my list of stuff, Chris. So I was just about to hand it to you.
Okay. I was trying to find a nice, quiet way to give you a time check. So that's exactly what
I was watching. I was just trying to get through the list quick.
All right. Well, hey, thank you, Mo. That was a great list and a great presentation. And really appreciate you doing that for us. And I hope that you'll do more. I said that at the end of the call, I would share a special coupon code for you to get 25% off of a 1 year of Penny Forward membership. I am going to share that in just a moment. But first, I'd like to share with you some things that are coming up in the Penny Forward world. The next Penny Forward podcast episode, and I encourage you to subscribe to the Penny Forward podcast if you haven't already, is an interview with Jeremy Grandstaff about our employment programs at Penny Forward. Coming up, we're going to be doing a repost of the Financial Sense call we did last month with Everett Bacon from IRA, talking about their partnerships with banks and how you can take advantage of those to manage your finances. And then stay tuned for a podcast episode featuring Homesteading by Touches, Nella Foster, who's going to be talking all about her life as, what would you call her? Kind of a farm girl in Springfield, Missouri. So Homesteader. Very, very cool stuff. That's the Penny Forward podcast. Subscribe at pennyforward.com/podcast or search for Penny Forward wherever you get your podcasts. Or ask your smart speaker to play the Penny Forward podcast. Any of those things will work. If you'd like to find out more about Penny Forward, you can visit our website, which is www.pennyforward.com. We offer self-paced online financial education courses, weekly Wednesday workshops, this monthly free Financial Sense program, and one-on-one financial counseling provided by blind accredited financial counselors. Memberships costs $99 a year or $9.99 a month. And here it is. Everybody listen up now. If you use the coupon code COMMUNITY, that coupon code again is COMMUNITY, you will get 25% off of the price of a yearly membership, making it just $74.25. Now, thank you again to Mo for facilitating tonight's call, and to Marcy and Belle for hosting and streaming. And thank you to the ACB community for providing us with this great platform. Have a good night, everybody. Have a good month, and we'll talk to you again next month.
Good night, everyone. Closing the room.